Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
Hey, welcome to Richard Listens on Sports. I'm your co-host, Peter Sobey, alongside Dr. Richard Olberger. It's always a pleasure, Dr. Richard.
Always. Never-ending fun.
Yes, and we are live here today from UBN Radio TV, the Universal Broadcasting Network, in beautiful Hollywood, California, at the Sunset Gower Studios. And it's always so inspiring to be here on the big movie lot and to be taping the Richard Listens on Sports show together. We have a fantastic guest today that we're really excited about. And actually, Dr. Richard and I are kind of pumped because we just taped a special segment of Richard Listens on Sports. You want to tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Yeah, on the eve of the NFL Combine, we had Simi Cobbs Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana, with all kinds of Big Ten accolades in terms of his touchdown catches and yardage, and he'll be competing this weekend in the NFL Combine. And how rare is it that you get someone to talk about their preparation and performance and mental skills going into such an event as the NFL Combine. So it's an honor to wish him success, and with a lot of gratitude at this moment right before he goes back to Indianapolis.
And we're going to air the show next Monday at this time, but you really got to watch it. He's such an inspirational, I keep calling him a young man, but, it's like an inspirational guy. His story, you'll just be floored by his journey, what he's been through to get where he's at and what he's accomplished. And, prognosticators have him going in like somewhere between the third and fourth round, and I'm hoping and praying my Chicago Bears get him, but... So don't miss that next Monday. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, and he showed some skills that I'm hoping our guest today will reflect upon, some unique ways of being able to get in the moment and perform despite adversity, despite injury, despite pressures from changes in your position within the team. So those things are not small, and any one of those things could throw off a peak performer. So I know that we're going to get into those elements and perhaps even how they tie into the Olympics today.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So without further ado, he's a certified mental performance consultant. He's a partner at Visions Pursue. He's formerly the director of sports psychology at Kansas State Athletics. And a really amazing, inspirational guy. It is Ian Connole. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
And did I get your name right then? Connole?
You nailed it.
Your name is probably one of the most mispronounced names in the history of last names, right?
Every sports team I played on, it was cannoli.
Right.
It sticks. So whether it's cannoli or not, the first day I raised my hand, coach, it's cannoli. He's like, all right, cannoli, get in there. And it's stuck. Never looked back.
And it's funny because I say holy cannoli all the time. So I imagine you got a lot of that, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I'm glad that I thought about asking you how to pronounce the last name, because I would have hated to have introduced you as like, hey, it's Dr. Ian Connole. Welcome. But we got it right.
Had a lot worse.
But thank you for being on the show, and we want to give a special thanks also to Jesse Michelle for actually introducing us with you. So And I think, Richard, you have a special congratulations for Jesse and the news he just got, right?
Yes, congratulations to Dr. Michelle on his expecting news. I don't know if he wants me to reveal, but
Right,
he's
we
having.
won't
But they're expecting, he and his wife, and I'm thankful to be on your journey. And I'm sorry that you couldn't be here today. Such is the life of a mental skills coach for a major league team. That when a prospect flies in and needs help right after your spring training, you need to be available, and we completely understand that. And like a true gentleman and peak performer that he is, he directed us to. I think we lucked out on the deal. We got
right.
I think you're our first TEDtalk expert to be on the show, and
appreciate it.
And I really enjoyed listening to that. And of course, the first thing that Peter and I are a little bit. Our pet peeve is obsession with donuts. So when I heard that you worked in a bakery and that shaped your early childhood life, of course,
Right.
Before we get into your career accolades, I need to know more about this deli.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. So I was actually born in the upstairs of a bakery, an apartment upstairs. I lived in a bakery for the first 5 years of my life. It was my grandmother's dream to start a bakery, and so my mother moved back to Maine to start the dream with her mother and really kind of put something together. And it was a really special time. Really brought a lot of family together. And when my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, we ended up closing up the bakery, but ended up being a pretty special time. And good food has never been far away as a result of it for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
And did you guys make good donuts there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My grandmother was the donut specialist.
wow.
Oh,
But
man, a woman of my
None
heart.
of these things have been passed down to me. That's for sure.
Was there a reward-based system for your work, or was it were you just expected to chip in? How did that tie into your development there?
As a 5-year-old, my work was entertaining everybody by just asking them to play sports with me. Literally, I would bring, whether it's the old ladies or the neighborhood boys, anyone would be outside. We're playing ball of some kind. So that was really my biggest contribution.
And a dream of mine since I was like 13 years old is to open a donut shop one day. And the older I get, it's like, well, when am I going to do it? But it's still a dream of mine.
Well, it took my grandmother about 65 years, but she got there. So
All right. Well, that's good inspiration for me.
there you go.
Speaking of inspiration, you're an inspiring gentleman. Sometimes, is it okay if I call you Dr. Ian once in a while?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got the PhD. You deserve it, man. Even though me and Richard are good friends, I always call him Dr. Richard because, it's not easy getting your PhD. So I like throwing that doctor title out there.
Thank you for recognizing.
Yeah, for both of you.
But I wouldn't be here without Peter. He's been the motivation when I was afraid to sit here and face the mic or reach out to new guests. So he's the true mensch.
Yes, and we have a lot to talk about today. I do want to tell our viewers that stick around after we say goodbye to Ian. We're going to have our coach Kit Kate with her fitness wellness tip, and then we do have a special announcement to make for the last 5 minutes of the show. We won't tell you what that is now, but you'll have to stay tuned to hear what it is. We have a lot to discuss with Dr. Ian. We want to hear a little bit about his journey. We want to hear all about his new Visions Pursue company. He's starting an app we're going to learn about. And before we say goodbye to him at the end of this interview, he's also got a promo to give our viewers for his app. So that's going to be amazing. So there's so much to talk about, but let's just start a little bit, Dr. Ian, about your journey. Without getting into a long story, what made you the man you are today and a mental performance consultant?
Well, why don't you just narrow it down a little bit?
Yeah.
I guess the story from the bakery to this seat today.
But I mean, was it something you were always interested in, psychology, and especially helping athletes and performers?
Retrospectively, looking back before I even knew sports psychology was a thing, I really was. I was an athlete my whole life. I competed in anything I could under the sun. And a huge part of it to me was the connection with other people. And so the ability to do something you love with the people you enjoy spending time with is the ultimate dream for me. And so once I was playing basketball at Skidmore College and spending some time injured, was looking to kind of figure out what to do with my psychology degree, and found exercise science and sports psychology became the perfect combination of the two. I spent a lot of time in the training room was trying to figure out what can I be doing to enhance my performance without being able to be on the court. And sports psychology came in as the answer of being able to think about how am I mentally preparing and how am I putting in the mental reps when I can't put in the physical reps. That really kind of took off this journey that brought me through coaching and mental skills training in a lot of different capacities.
So, Dr. Ian, I can really appreciate that moment of being injured and being on the court. And was there anyone who helped mold you at that moment or helped guide you in that direction, or did you completely find it on your own?
So my story is filled with amazing mentors, so I'm incredibly grateful. At that point, it was actually a mentor from afar. So Dr. Tom Hansen, who actually co-wrote Heads Up Baseball with my grad school mentor, Ken Ravizza.
Ken Ravizza, our friend.
Yes,
we spent a day at a workshop of his a few months ago.
He's fantastic, isn't he?
Have you been to his house?
I have.
Yeah.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
He's great, though. We love him a lot.
Sat on the lawn chairs, I may have painted those a time or two when I was in grad school.
But he's going to be a guest up in the future as well as soon as the Cubs are done with spring training. So
they have a Heads Up Baseball 2.0 now as well.
Yeah, and of course I'm a huge Cubs fan. So when I was at his house, he let me wear his World Series ring. It was very exciting. Definitely a highlight of my life. But what a great mentor to have.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you were saying Tom Hansen, Ken Ravizza were inspirational to you.
So Tom didn't even know that he was an inspiration to me, and the fact that he had taught at Skidmore College the year before I started there. And so there were other professors that said, "Hey, you seem really interested in psychology and sport. Have you heard of sports psychology? We had this guy, Tom Hansen, here, and you should really check out the field and his stuff." And at that point, I actually connected with a gentleman, Mike Frazier, Dr. Frage, down in Albany, New York, and followed him around for about a year to try to learn about the field, and then took a year coaching, directing sports camps, and really trying to figure my way of trying to educate that next generation of athlete and how I could do that in a way that was authentic to me before diving down this rabbit hole of sports psychology. And that's what brought me to Cal State Fullerton with Ken Ravizza, and then on to West Virginia University, where I made my decisions about where to go based on the number of people who are doing amazing work in those institutions. I could not be more fortunate to just sit there and observe and learn from, follow Ken all over Southern California, whether we're in La Jolla or Pasadena or anywhere in between.
Wow, that's amazing to be able to shadow a man like that. I love how you describe him too, that he would certainly be on the Mount Rushmore of sports psychology. I mean, that's for sure. He's one of the pioneers, right?
Without a doubt. Yep, he's up there, and there's quite a few that it's too hard to name them all, but Ken is one of those initial, I think, fathers of sports psychology in the U.S. of really doing a lifetime of applied work.
And here's a question I put out to you, Dr. Ian, first, but then I also put it out to my colleague, Dr. Richard. When you have the opportunity to learn from people like that, how do you take what you observe and take, their methodology, and then how do you create your own? I got to imagine, with Dr. Ken, it's or Ken Ravizza, it's so tempting. He's got such amazing depth of everything he does. So how did you do that, observe that, but then create your own style of performance coaching?
Yeah, Peter, that's a great question. Because I think after 2 years following Ken around, I probably left as a mini Ken Ravizza. And I don't have his mustache. I don't have his accent. I don't have his humor. I could not fit that mold. So it would have been a recipe for disaster had I not had the opportunity to really study with a number of other sports psych professionals that, through kind of seeing a whole lot of different approaches, I really was able to, I think, find my own voice and find out who I was and kind of combine my experiences coaching with what I'd seen from Ken and figure out the best way to approach the athletes that I was working with. Because I think that's one of the biggest dangers any of us who get to spend time around really amazing mentors and great people is that it can be easy to try to be just like them. And then next thing we know, we're not being authentic to who we are. And we're trying to put on a show to be someone else. And so I think I probably failed enough times at trying to be Ken that I eventually realized I had to find out how to be myself.
So was there a moment at West Virginia or at Fullerton, or maybe when you, or at West Virginia, when you kind of stepped out of the shadow of when you were still maybe mini Ken, when you noticed something happen where you were like, this is me, whether through failure or through just something genuine happen? And was it with the sport of your choice, or were people seeking you out?
Yeah, so one of the, I think, blessings in disguise was I got there and I wanted to work, with big time sports. I wanted to work basketball, football, like revenue generating sports. And I was really excited about that opportunity. And then we were on kind of a rotational system, and the team that opened up was the women's tennis team. And ironically, I'd never seen Ken work with tennis in the first place. So of all the sports that I had spent time with him, tennis wasn't one of them. And so I kind of had to think about what I was applying from what I'd learned from him and then working with the tennis team there. And then the more I got into kind of the program, I wouldn't say there was one moment, but there were just a culmination of moments where, I would have one thing that I would do or say that was not exactly the way Ken would approach it, or I would then see another approach where I had to mentor Ed Etzel, who was a gold medalist in the '84 Olympics in rifle. And he, little bit like Einstein, a little bit like a Buddhist monk, all wrapped up into one with this real West Virginia feel to it. And he brought this incredible personality that was totally different. And then I had my other applied mentors there, Vanessa Shannon and Jack Watson, that they really had incredibly different approaches. I remember sitting down with Jack Watson, and he came around the front of the desk and pulled up a chair next to me and stared me in the eyes. And I'd never felt like someone was seeing into me as deeply as he was. And it creeped me out at first, I'm not going to lie. But after a few minutes, like, I just have felt more heard than anyone else I'd ever kind of sat down with to have a conversation. And so really kind of seeing each of these elements come together, I was like realizing there's so many different ways to connect, to build relationships. And then it just kind of growing in my own skin was figuring out which of those things do I pull from, and which of the stories from my own life and the things that I do well can I really build on.
Really interesting. And we actually have a question from a viewer, Shardia Jumpholic Lawrence. She asked the two doctors, hey, this is awesome. So proud. Anyways, how can people block out disappointing events and still focus on the prize? Which is going to kind of tie into talking about the Olympics next.
That's an awesome question. That's possibly a future Olympian right there asking it too as well. So
amazing. Thanks for the question, Shardia.
Dr. Richard, you want to jump in first, or you want me to take it?
Should we go for it now, or or you want to hold it?
Yeah, like Shardia, stay tuned. Let's talk about the Olympics.
Well, about the Olympic? Okay, but I learned a lot from Simi, who will share the journey later. But the ability to tie in coaches, mentors into your process, whether it be recovering from injury or going towards a high goal, whether it be someone like myself going for a Tough Mudder or someone like Simi going for the NFL draft, to have those people who keep you on a schedule, on a focus, keeping your mind on the goal, is I think key, because distractions are ever present, and the bigger the goal, the more focus there has to be. So there's kind of like the meta focus and the micro focus. So for me, having a journal of things that I want to do or affirmations present keep me kind of focused in on goal setting, and having people, whether it be someone like yourself or people training me that are keeping me focused, are tools that I use.
Nice. And Dr. Ian, so the Olympics just wrapped, and we could start by tying it in with Shardia's question. People train, they're entire lives sometimes for that one, 1 minute world stage at the Olympics. I mean, obviously, if it's like a hockey game or curling, it lasts longer. But tying it in with Shardia's question, so let's say, like, you're the figure skater and you train your whole life and you get to the Olympics and you fall. So how do you overcome that disappointing event and still focus on the prize? Because one fall doesn't mean you're out of contention. But how do you get that negativity out of your mind, especially mid-performance?
I think that it's a great question, and I think the Olympic Games are a perfect opportunity to see it in action, because you do have athletes that are prepared their whole lives, but really this stage that we only see it once every 4 years. And even if they've been competing weekly for those 4 years, this is the one time we see them, and they know that. So I think there's a first piece of being able to really validate the stage and understand that with that come distractions, and it comes this elevated sense of pressure and the weight that it's easy to put on ourselves or on the athlete for themselves. And so I think the first piece for me comes down to expect the expected. And phrase I really like to use to really help to think about, like, what things will be coming up. And now let's plan for them appropriately. So we're not going to go in there and think that I'm not going to have any pressure. I look at someone like Michaela Schifrin, who threw up before entering the starting gate, and she's gone on to be a multiple medalist. She was an incredible skier. She, I think, silver and a gold coming out of these games. And she said that she still feels that intense pressure, and she still feels the performance anxiety, that she throws up before she begins a race sometimes. And so the idea that it won't be there, I think, isn't something we ever want to look at, because then we're surprised when it comes. Instead, we want to really embrace the experience, embrace the pressure that we feel, but understand how to utilize that. So there's a big difference between pressure when it can be really facilitative and help us, or it can be debilitative and hurt us. And a big piece of that is whether we're embracing it as a challenge or we're looking at it as a threat. And as we take that stage and we embrace that challenge in it, and we let ourselves get excited for it, we feel whatever we feel without a struggle. We don't spend our energy trying not to feel something. We feel whatever we feel, and then we channel that energy forward into what we planned and prepared. Because the beauty of being able to prepare for 4 years, as you saw time and time again, these athletes at the top of the mountain, and they're going through the visualization of their entire thing, they know exactly what they're going to do. So then it comes down to being able to put yourself out there to do it with the best energy you have. And we see that when we embrace it as a challenge, when we look at the opportunity we have, and then we focus really clearly on your specific process and what I'm doing there, the blood vessels actually increase, allowing that heart that's pumping to accelerate the blood flow and the oxygen through the body to allow us to perform at our optimal level. And so for me, that's the biggest thing, is not to pretend that we're not going to feel it, to embrace the nerves, to know that they're going to be a big part of it, but then to be able to take on that challenge and feel that challenge, right back to what's my plan, what's my process, and how do I execute that at the best of my abilities.
And can I just play devil's advocate for one moment, Dr. Ian? So let's say I'm an athlete, and I've just heard all this and it sounds great, but I'm like, yo, Dr. Ian, so you're telling me to know that I might fall and make a mistake and expect it? What if that wills it to happen? I don't want to be thinking about making a mistake.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I think Michael Phelps was at a different Olympic level, but a perfect example where his coach actually stomped on his goggles and made him then go out and compete with him one time. Broken goggles, water filling his eyes, and he had to count his strokes to get to the end. He never had a race until he entered the Olympics and dove into the pool where his goggles filled with water. But he had prepared for that worst case scenario and was able to outtouch his competitor by 1/1000th of a second, if I recall, by counting his strokes. And so by preparing for that scenario, what could go wrong, we kind of take the teeth out of it. So we're not afraid that, well, I could fall as a skater, or I could have water fill my goggles as a swimmer. Whatever it is, I'm prepared for whatever could come. I've thought about these things, but I know that I have the ability to respond in those moments. And so I can put in a plan into action of how I would like to respond in those moments.
Great answer.
Yeah, I like that. You can tell that Dr. Connole's language of using the term challenge is something that we keep high performers on, as opposed to obstacle. And the whole language of somatic experience, which I usually talk about with my clients, is right, the whole fight or flight mechanism, right? So if you fall, if you're Shaun White and you fall on that second, is it jump? I don't know the appropriate term, but his second run through the snowboarding half pipe, right? So, right, now these young athletes that are skateboarders or snowboarders, they're falling all the time. They fall probably the more they try and expand and do 180s, 720s, 540s. I don't even know all the different tricks they're doing, but they're falling all the time. And I think they learn to channel as soon as they get up, like they look at their co-competitors, but those are also the people you're out there kind of playing around with, and they give each other tremendous support and resourcefulness. Plus, they've brought in, you could tell Lindsey Vonn was looking to the crowd. She had a certain, row that was her family or supporters. Like, who to look at that helps you go recheck in with yourself, reground yourself, let it go. I mean, like you said, there's a certain moment of, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're competitors, and they know they can do better, and they probably have already diagnosed what went wrong on that particular run or jump before any of us can. So it's the ability not to internalize it and hold on to it that allows you as an athlete who's really working on their mental skills to be present again, to go and try again and not be harnessed by fear.
Absolutely.
I like it. All right. So wrapping up on the Olympics, any final notes, Ian, about the Olympic Games and performance?
Yeah, I think that was kind of a really, really good tie-in. And one of the things that stood out to me overall was kind of the ability of athletes to perform when they have almost no expectations, right? Whether it's Ledeca, who was the snowboarder.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about her. Yeah, what did you think about that? I mean, the ability
That's
to...
incredible, right?
I mean, the TV cameras had shifted off, and she's ranked outside the top 25 in the world. Yeah.
On the exact flip side, you have the Nathan Chen, right, with these extremely high expectations, and I think it's easy to wear those expectations, right? And when we can just feel whatever we feel, but then we can just rip and just go out there and do what we're prepared to do, that's where we're all at our best. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of the snow sports and snowboarders do so well, because so often they are going to fail, that they're just out there and they let it rip. And it comes off as fearless to the rest of us. But what it is they've just prepared for that again and again and again. And so it's not that they are fearless, it's just that they fear less, because they've put themselves in those uncomfortable situations again and again and again, so that when they're there, they're ready to just let it rip. And that's one of the really cool things I think we see in so many of these kind of final runs, whether it's a Shaun White who just goes off on his third run and just lays down a nearly perfect score, or whether it is the Esther Ledeca who is not expected to do anything and just comes out and takes lines down the mountain that other people hadn't taken. Is just free for all, just letting it rip. I think there is something to really be said about that freedom that comes with that.
Yes, indeed. So, Dr. Ian, there is so much more to talk about, but I want to definitely get to the app. But a really quick thing, I love that you're undefeated as a college golf coach. Not many people could say that. And actually, one moment really quick, Jarvis, it says our live feed is ended. Okay, we're going to, for those watching on UBN Radio TV, the stream continues, but on Facebook, we'll be back up in a moment. But yes, so you're an undefeated college golf coach.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty cool moment, but very unfortunate at the same time. Our head women's golf coach at Kansas State had both of her parents pass away in the same summer.
Oh.
And so I was planning to be traveling with the team as the mental skills coach, working with them off the course already. But as she wasn't there, they have a second spot for accountable coach, which means I can walk along the course with the players, interact during the rounds. And so that allowed me to actually step in and kind of become Stuart Burke's assistant coach for the weekend. And so one thing led to another, and we had a group that really rallied together and performed exceptionally well. And so my 2 days of coaching were a great success, and I'm going to hang it up at that, and I'll stick to the mental side of it, because if any of them ask me how to play one of those shots or what to do on one of those holes, I'm the last person they want to hear advice from.
Yeah, and that's really tragic circumstances for that to happen under. But how do you think that impacted you, later bonding with the players, or them coming to you for mental skills?
I think that's a really cool question, because I had a really good relationship with them and with many of the teams that I would get to spend time with, travel with anyway. So I think for the most part, they didn't realize it was that different than ordinary. What was different was there were a few of them that actually I got to walk with on the course. And I think that definitely deepened our relationship. Being out there for 18 holes when, they're putting it on the line each time, and they're riding the wave of emotion with each shot that comes out of there. I think that was cool to be able to be along that journey with them rather than just kind of silently observing it from the side.
So we have about 5 minutes left with you, Dr. Ian, maybe a little bit more, but I want to get into Visions Pursue. So
Yes.
How does a guy like you, now you're involved in an app? And it sounds
Yeah,
amazing. Tell us about it.
When I was at Kansas State, actually early on, I met two former K-Staters, John McGraw and Russ Roush. And Russ was built a trading technologies company in Chicago from 20 people to 650, was a COO of a hedge fund. And John played at K-State and played football in the NFL for 10 years. And the two of them were both at the height of their careers, and they really connected because they said, we're doing everything we ever wished we could do in life, and we're still miserable.
Wow.
How is this the case? And so they realized, obviously the solution is not external. More money, more stuff, more external success doesn't necessarily create internal happiness. And you can look to any number of celebrities who've talked about that process. And so we connect after they really turned to mindfulness and mental skills training to try to really provide that solution for themselves. And I happened to be the resident expert in Kansas State. And so we connected and really looked at how can I build something? How can we make this more than what I'm doing face to face with an athlete? And John and Russ brought in such incredible insights and life experiences and ability to scale this way beyond just sport, because a big part of my career, and what I love about the motto of your show, right, is sports, life, and the intersections in between, has been thinking about how do we take these elite mental skills, right, that we talk about with Olympic athletes and these football players entering NFL draft, and how do we take these to the broader audience, and how can we all apply them to just improve our daily life experience and performance in the things that matter to us, whatever those may be. And so we were able to create an app that really trains the mind through 3 daily practices to focus in on the things that are more controllable, to be able to be more engaged in the process, to develop our focus and ability to be more mindful in what we're doing, and just taking a lot of these really, I think, powerful concepts and turning them into audio, video, and meditations to put in the mental reps to really develop these skills that previously I think were pretty isolated to elite sport.
So I guess my question would be, who are you targeting as an audience? And I just want to make a comment about your TED Talk. And for all listeners, please take time to look up Dr. Ian Connole and his TED Talk. And I just want to say how refreshing it is that you really, how often, even as someone working in this field, that we get away from the power to impact the moment. And I really want to thank you for being vulnerable and giving that talk, and for bringing this product for people to get in touch with that aspect within themselves daily.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That was quite the experience, actually. I really enjoyed kind of bringing the concepts together for that TED Talk. And then I ended up getting as sick as I'd been in years the weekend leading up to it. So talking about an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You talk about obstacles or challenges, right? A challenge to work my own mental skills, and I did everything I could. I channeled my Michael Jordan flu game to try to get myself up and ready and onto that stage. So I was really enjoyed the opportunity to kind of share that. And that's really been what this whole journey with Vision Pursue has been, being able to share these mental skills across the board. And so we work in high performance sports. I was with an NBA team earlier this year. And then we also work in corporate America, doing trainings where we do in-person trainings, as well as then the daily reinforcement via the app. And then we're really building this app that anybody, anywhere can use it. So that's my ultimate goal, is to be able to provide access to really quality mental skills training for a whole broad audience. Anyone who's really willing and dedicated to spend, 10 to 15 minutes a day developing their mind. And in the back end, I really think it's really hard to justify in so many of our hectic lives. 15 minutes, but it pays itself back when you are able to sleep better, be more present with your family, be more productive in the workplace. That 15 minutes, I really strongly believe pays itself back tenfold.
And I love it. I mean, you're saying this is for everyone, not just athletes.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love the sound of it. I can't wait to try it myself. And speaking of trying it myself, you're offering a special promo code for our viewers. So give the information of how they could find the app and the promo code. I know what it is, but I'd rather you tell them.
Sounds good. You can find the app Vision Pursue, VISION PURSUE, in Apple and Android app stores. And you can check out the website, visionpursue.com. And for listeners of the show, the access code is Richard. So I figured that would be something we could easily remember here. Dr. Richard, so that one's for you. So all you have to do is download the app. At the bottom, there's an orange button that says create account, and you enter the access code Richard, capital R, and that will give all the listeners 12 free days on the app.
And that's amazing. And even after that, it's what, $10 a month?
Yep.
That's like nothing for what you're offering.
Well, if I get one good night's sleep, then I can say it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, we get to there by day 6. So.
Oh, wow.
Day 6, you get your first sleep meditation, as well as a couple suggestions on how to really improve the sleep process. Because one of the things I've noticed time and time again is, judgment, resistance, expectations, control are really bottle us up like crazy. And so often if I can't sleep, even more than my mind going or not being sleep, it's then I get frustrated that I'm not sleeping, that then interferes with the sleep even further. And so we really try to provide some really practical strategies for being able to first prepare. I've set up kind of my life. So I have my phone goes into night mode at 8 p.m. I kind of dim white lights and try to avoid as much screen time within an hour getting to bed. But then when I do, if I'm laying there and my mind doesn't sleep, it's easy to just throw on a sleep meditation and just take that opportunity to have quiet time at night to do kind of deep relaxation and not fight the fact that, I'm not sleeping well right now.
Well, it's amazing. So I hope our viewers take advantage of that promo code and check out the app. I know I will. Yeah,
and thanks for sharing what you do for yourselves as well, Ian, as someone who's out there speaking, coaching, researching. We also need to know skills that we use as professionals to keep ourselves grounded. So any other ones besides sleep meditation and decreasing screen time, which I definitely think I'm going to put into practice?
Yeah, totally.
One of the things that was most powerful for me that has really been a core of what we do at Vision Pursue is really emotional intelligence, emotional control, in a sense of being able to have a way to deal with our emotions, right? Because I really think this should be a fundamental thing we teach to elementary school kids, is how do you deal with emotions, as opposed to we just feel them and we chase motions that feel good and we resist ones that don't feel good. And so we teach a simple process to see our emotions, and C is an acronym, SEE, to separate from them and see them for what they are, just kind of chemical projections that are entering our body that are producing a hormonal neurotransmitter release. And then to embrace them, because an emotion is a messenger of some kind, and they may be off base, they may be overly strong, but there's some message in it, and it's our brain's way to help keep us productive and alive. So just embracing it for what it is and choosing our response to them, and then we can evaluate how we want to respond externally. So rather than just responding out of an emotion, which I think is really easy for any of us to do, when we have a process that we get to put into action, we get to practice regularly, it really allows us to feel like, regardless, just like we were talking about earlier in the Olympics, regardless what happens, I have a plan to respond. And so regardless what I feel, I have the ability to step outside, to see it for what it is, to embrace it, to welcome it, not to fight it, not to resist it, not to suppress it, and then be able to evaluate what path forward. Because sometimes it is, I want to do something to be able to relax myself. Or maybe there's an element of the situation that I'm getting a message I need to take care of. And so then I can kind of choose what my external response would be. So if there's one last nugget I want to kind of throw in there that is really reinforced daily through the awareness review in the app, it's the C process, because I think that's been incredibly powerful.
Wow, thanks for sharing that.
Great acronym to slow down and take a look at your emotions rather than respond to them, which certainly we all need to do, especially if competing high-intensity athletics.
So, Dr. Ian, we always like to say that we have our guests on to motivate and inspire our viewers, and I think you've more than done that. So we really appreciate you sharing your story, your knowledge, giving all those tips and motivation, and we look forward to hopefully a lot of success with Vision Pursue, the new app coming out. So don't forget, you can go to visionpursue.com and download the app, promo code Richard for 12 free days. And if people want to reach out to you, the website, and you got a Twitter handle, Sports Psych Focus.
Yep, either one of those are great.
Amazing. So, Dr. Ian, thank you for being our guest on Richard Listens on Sports.
Thank you for stepping in on such a short notice, and thank you for being a leader in this field, following after pioneers like Dr. Ken. But for people like myself, I'm inspired to see you out there creating a new frontier.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure, that's for sure. And thank you to Jess and Michelle for making this happen as well.
Definitely. All right, so thanks a lot, Dr. Ian.
I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Richard.
We'll have to have him back when we have, we'll get him live from the baby shower. I don't know.
Yeah. So much more we could have talked about. Really amazing stuff from Dr. Ian there.
And great timing with the Olympics.
Yeah, and I absolutely can't wait to download the app. Vision Pursue, promo code Richard, 12 free days. But even that, 12 free days, I mean, it's like $10 a month for what the app offers you.
Well, it's like anything else. There's great tools out there, but if you have to utilize them. And so it's great that you get 2 weeks to see, wow, what did that feel like to learn some of these techniques and apply them, and can I see a shift in the way I'm thinking or reacting or sleeping? And I play around, learn even more of the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So what a great guest.
I know there's a journal on there. There's some other things in there.
Yeah, I saw that. Like I was kind of looking at the list of things on there, like journaling, and like you keep track of certain things. It'll suggest like a little like, hey, if you're at this process, like we're going to suggest you listen to a song for 5 minutes or something. And it looks like in each day it would incrementally get, if that's a word, incrementally, is that a word? I don't know. But it would get more in line with where you're at in the process. And it would probably become like, now meditate for 15 minutes, take you from just listening to a song to bigger things. And anyway, unbelievable stuff and a great guest. And we're grateful to Jesse Michelle for hooking us up with
it's a great
Ian
stage
Connole.
that mental skills that professionals, corporate, and athletic or NBA teams and corporations realize that they need mental skills to get through their day to become optimal performers.
Absolutely. And I love too that it's for anyone. The app is for, I'm just a a business guy and an artistic guy, and the app is good for me too, and I'm not even an athlete. All right, so we only have like 5-10 minutes left of the show, and our fitness wellness expert, Coach Kate is with us via Zoom now from somewhere in the world during her
Somewhere in the world.
world travels. It's hard to keep up with all of her jet setting, but she's so cosmopolitan and world traveled, but always good to see you here. And, you know, usually Caitlin's been a bigger part of the show, but I said in the beginning of the show that we have a special announcement to make, and we'll get to that after the fitness tip from Caitlin. But yeah, that's you'll see part of the reason why we kind of, because we had, a guest from Zoom and Caitlin's coming in on Zoom, so we thought we'd bring her in on the tail end of the show to kind of go in with the announcement. But how are you doing, Caitlin?
Hi,
Good. You
Caitlin.
guys can hear me, see me, everything good?
We do, yes.
See a nice background.
I know, right? That typical background. But no, I'm excited to give you my fitness wellness tip this week because I decided I needed to really relate it to my life, because these last few weeks I've faced a pretty awful injury that has not been able to allow me to exercise really my lower body at all.
Yikes.
So being a fitness fanatic, this is making me go a little bit crazy. So my tip for this week is about being your own advocate, because my experiences with certain doctors have not given me necessarily the correct diagnoses to begin with, which has kind of taken me on a journey. And the second part is to embrace the change, which, to be honest, has even been hard for me to do. So advocating for yourself and embracing the change when you're faced with anything, which could be, in like my case, an injury physically, or maybe you come up with a new food allergy that you never knew you had. And that's, kind of forcing you to make that change. So when I relate it to my life, how I have been, trying to embrace that change is figuring out some way to move around, even if I can't use, my lower half of my body and do a leg workout. I've gotten creative, and I've even been doing like these aerobic workouts sitting in a chair. I feel like I look sort of like a crazy person doing them. But it's giving me that kind of mental, I'm still moving, I'm still working out, and being more dialed into my diet. So again, my fitness wellness tip is to just be an advocate and try to embrace change even when it's uncomfortable, because maybe in the long run, you might find some new things that work for you. And then it's a new way to challenge both your body and your current nutrition plan. So.
Wow. And luckily we're here with the doctor. The doctor is in. So
yes.
This is interesting. Caitlin has a tip of be the best advocate for yourself. Dr. Richard, what advice do you give a person that comes in and says, I'm a highly athletic person and I've got a pretty bad injury that isn't allowing me to train and work out like I usually do?
Yeah, this is hard. This isn't just an intellectual exercise, because I've been in contact with Caitlin throughout this. So it's very hard when someone is an athlete like Caitlin, who's used to pushing themselves and doing a variety of high-intensity workouts, versus if somebody came in and maybe they already were having trouble getting back in or struggling with weight loss. The approach would be very different. But in terms of injury, the fact that she's remaining in control of looking into options, looking into physical therapy, massage, different things that might help. It's got to be challenging if you're in the case of someone who travels a lot, because that can put a lot of strain on the body as well. So I would hope for one of my clients that they could kind of stick with some sort of similarity of treatment protocol or process, feeling like you're engaging in something that's moving you in proximity back to health psychologically can help. It's probably a little bit different than when you mentioned like the food allergy, where you at least want to have somebody who's helping you figure out, well, what foods might work. Even if it's one or two things, we kind of need to feel some sense of control or direction, that our body's responding to it, that our moods are responding to, also to the foods that are coming in. So if it were for a longer term, I've had clients like, can they get in the pool? Are there things that they can do that are less intense, and can they modify? So if you're someone who needs to do a lot of variety of things on the ankle and the leg is hurting, right? Can they do more arms and upper body, lower impact things? And being okay to express about how frustrating that is, because it is very hard, and especially if there's any pain that's resulting from it. So are you treating the pain? Are you developing a language around identifying pain versus discomfort? Those are some of the kind of directions that I go.
And
Wow.
I have to thank you, Richard, for, telling me, this is only temporary. And I think that one statement we can all, connect with, that when you're going through like an injury or something like that, this is temporary, and that, you will work through the process. And then again, if relating that to a nutritional food allergy, usually you can find some kind of replacement that will, satisfy either your craving or need for that food, or there's a way to supplement to get what you need to have a healthy body, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many emotional things. Like feeling like your doctor is not diagnosing you or treating you well that's really hard, and that plays into like a feeling of emotional support and direction. So that's kind of stage one, right? And then once you find that, or if you can find that, finding a plan and sticking with it. Now, there's still going to be some emotional frustration with not being able to go out and deadlift 350 or do bunny hops or whatever it is that you do, box jumps, or hike a mountain, things that may be natural for you. But you can still find enjoyment. For me, when I overcame back surgery, it was going out for very slow walks. It was my way of connecting to friends. It was my way of getting out of my home. It was my way of getting my blood moving again after taking, painkillers. So I was thankful for that. I was thankful just to get out and see some trees and just be out of my environment a little bit and get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Got to tie it back into donuts somehow.
Yes, and that actually, we only have 2 minutes left of the show, which kind of ties into, getting out of comfort zones and all that. We said we had an announcement at the beginning of the show, and these last 2 minutes of the show are Peter Sobey's last 2 minutes on Richard Listens on Sports. Thank God the title isn't Richard and Peter Listens on Sports, because then it would have been really weird. But it's Richard Listens on Sports.
We're going to miss you.
Yes, we're going to miss you, and we know that this is very hard for Peter to make this decision. His energy and time are going full commit into his vids app, and I wish him success and a lot of gratitude that we wouldn't be sitting here and doing this, or having met all the people we've met or had all the discussions we've had, if we're not for the last 18 months of his direction and guidance. So I am thankful, I am appreciative, and I know that we will continue to do work and seek your guidance to keep the show growing and excited. And what can we say? With every challenge, it's a challenge. Like Dr. Ian said, it's a challenge.
I feel so blessed and grateful to know you, Peter, and not only as, being our co-host on this show, but for our friendship, for all the inspiration you constantly provide me with. And you're going to be so missed, but maybe we'll have to bring you on as one of our guests in the future.
Right, exactly. And, I guess on a final note, I would like to say, obviously, Dr. Richard and I have talked about this in great length, but it was such a hard decision to come by. And maybe I actually used part of Caitlin's tip, like, being your own advocate, that I just, I'm partners in a tech app startup, and it's like 24/7. And I love doing this show. I love my friendship with Dr. Richard. I love sports. I love doing this show. I love Caitlin. I love all the guests that come in. And the guests are like getting better and better. It's like I'm leaving at the worst. We just had like a future NFL star.
Right? It seems that way, that it's the worst, and it's never the right time. But like we're always telling our clients, as we're moving faster and faster, when you notice your own energy, and I just appreciate the vulnerability of all this, of realizing, what, it's too much, and you pour so much. You're not the kind of person, Peter, that just shows up. You give 100%. You reach out to all our guests. You highlight them, you research them, you tell their stories. And, there comes a time, I know myself from doing about 50 things at one time, that some things need to fall off to do them well. And I've never been good at making those decisions, and I assume that's an area of growth for me. So I appreciate you modeling that, and we will probably pressure you to come back more often than you'd like. So
yes. Maybe I'll be the one zooming in once in a while for the Pete tip or something.
there you go. So no tears will be shed.
Yes.
There's just an expansion of all our capacities, and hopefully Caitlin will be having an increased role, and we hope she heals first.
Thank you.
And,
Yes, and so, well, thank to all of our viewers, or thanks, I'm not even speaking good English now, I'm so emotional. Thanks for all our viewers, and I'm going to miss everyone, but Richard Listens on Sports will go on. Don't forget next Monday to tune in for our special taping with Simi Cobbs Jr., a future NFL star. And but until then, Richard, it's been a great ride, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you. I have with only unlimited gratitude, and we are on the eve of great things. Next month we'll be coming out with an ebook. We'll be looking to get you more information, add more value into all of your lives as our listeners, and we appreciate all of you reaching out, wanting to be guests on the show, and we want to continue bringing value to the public, sharing your stories, and hearing more about your journeys along the way.
Thank you for watching Richard Listens on Sports.